So the president has another investigation to worry about. The Trump inauguration is now being criminally investigated. So there's a lot of creepy stuff going on here. Rick Gates is a former Trump aide who helped run the inaugural committee, and he struck a plea deal with Mueller in February, and he's been cooperating with federal investigators. Now, he is also an associate of Paul Manafort, and Paul Manafort is notoriously corrupt and will work with anybody who will pay him a significant amount of money. And get this, Trump raised for his inauguration $106.7 million. Now, that's insanity because Obama's record was $43 million. And it's not like Obama was, was uncorrupted. No, he was corrupted. But Trump somehow managed to raise more than double what Obama raised. How? Well, that all comes back to Rick Gates and his connections with Manafort and who they were able to get money from. That's where it gets all sketchy. So there was clearly a pay-to-play corruption scandal involved here, because when you go to these after parties, it's like, oh, you pay $250,000 to eat with Pence, or you pay like $500,000 to eat with Trump and his family, and then there's these VIP rooms where you get in, and those cost X amount of money, and it's all this pay-to-play shit where you get close to them, and then, of course, when you're close to them, what happens? You end up discussing business. Hey, what do you want? You want a federal contract? You want a special tax break? You want to get investigators off your ass? What do you want? What do you want? That's unfortunately the way our government functions. But take a look at this. This gives you some of the details of who helped, of who actually contributed to Trump and his team. Look, finance industry big shots, Robert Mercer, whom the New Yorker later dubbed the reclusive hedge fund tycoon behind the Trump presidency. Paul Singer, another hedge fund billionaire who funds the Washington Free Beacon website, which, oddly enough, had paid the opposition research firm Fusion GPS to dig up dirt on Trump during the primaries. And Steve Cohen, whose hedge fund group was closed down due to insider trading allegations, all donated $1 million each. Corporate America. The inaugural committee raised $2 million from AT&T, $1 million each from Bank of America, Boeing, Dow Chemical, Pfizer, Qualcomm, and at least $500,000 each from JP Morgan Chase, FedEx, Chevron, Exxon, Fidelity, Intel, Citgo, and BP America. Secret conservative groups. The American Action Network, a dark money nonprofit that spent tens of millions on elections since 2010, gave $1 million. Another $1 million came from a mysterious shell company called BH Group LLC, and its true source remained mysterious for more than a year. Only this year did journalist Robert McGuire trace that contribution to a group tied to the conservative legal movement and Federalist Society executive Leonard Leo, who's found a prominent role advising Trump on judicial nominations. Okay, but here's the big one. So here's the craziest part about what I just read to you to this point is that might all be legal. By the way, it shouldn't be. When you have fucking Chevron and JP Morgan and BP giving $500,000 and Boeing and Dow Chemical and Bank of America giving $1 million each, they're doing that for a reason. These motherfuckers are buying, corporate welfare. These motherfuckers are buying that giant tax cut for the rich and for corporations that Trump gave them and the Republicans gave them. So that itself is corruption, and we should call it out as such, but it's not even treated like that. So the crazy thing is, to this point, all of that might be legal. Here's where the illegality potentially comes in. Because Gates was involved, and by extension Manafort was involved, donors with connections to Russia, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Qatar were involved. Now, on top of that, they say that, hey, listen, so federal investigators are going through the money, and they're like, we can't account for where all of it went. So they're, even with knowing where a lot of it came from and where a lot of it went, they say, yeah, there's still millions that we don't even know. So you got that, plus the fact that we're literally talking about either foreign oligarchs, lobbying groups linked to foreign governments that this is probably what happened. You probably are getting money from foreign governments or foreign oligarchs, and then what are they getting in return? And that could actually be a violation of the Emoluments Clause of the Constitution. That could be actual corruption. Now, of course, you'd have to get a quid pro quo and all that stuff, and that's notoriously hard to prove. But you can't just take money from Saudi Arabia and from the UAE and Russia. And I mean, that's now in the case of Russia, as I've spoken about endlessly, and I'm one of the few people to actually point this out, the policies that the U.S. government has pursued on the Russia front are actually not favorable. So that's why I'm skeptical of the grand treason narrative of like, oh, he's Putin's puppet. But having said that, that doesn't mean that he didn't take money from Russian oligarchs. And that doesn't mean that there aren't favors being done on that front. It absolutely could be. We know that his Panama hotel, Trump's Panama hotel, there's money laundering going on there. Who knows what the fuck else is going on? In the case of Saudi Arabia, and if they could trace direct lines and realize that because it was money from the inauguration that was part of a package that led Trump to say, okay, you know what? Over $100 billion weapons deal goes to Saudi Arabia. That's fine. I don't even care that you're using it to kill Yemeni children. We're in favor of this deal. If they could trace those lines, goddamn. So, but the most important fact here is, now this is another Trump investigation, and that means that, so here are all the investigations ongoing around Trump. They're investigating his transition team. They're investigating his actual campaign. They're investigating his administration. They're investigating the Trump Organization. Remember that? They're investigating the Trump Foundation. Remember that? And now they're investigating his inaugural committee. So there's 6 different investigations going on. So now I have to tell you guys, I do have a conclusion. I do not know what's going to happen in terms of his presidency. So, I mean, is it possible that there's some impeachment proceedings? It's possible. Is it likely? I would say no, because you need to have crimes that are directly traceable to stuff being done in office. That's a weird little fact about impeachment that a lot of people don't know. You can't say like, hey man, you committed this crime in 2004, and therefore now we're going to impeach you as a result of it. So in other words, a lot of the stuff that is super fishy, like the Panama hotel and money laundering, that apparently is not an impeachable offense. Now there's a question as to whether or not it should be, and I think that's a totally reasonable debate to have, but it has to be related to something in office. But here's my prediction. I don't know what's going to happen on the impeachment front. I don't know what's going to happen for the rest of his presidency, but when he gets out, he will certainly be indicted. I don't know exactly on what front, but I know that there's so much there that when he's out of office and he no longer has the protection of being president of the United States, he will definitely be indicted. Probably multiple indictments from many of these investigations. So he's in a lot of trouble, and I think deep down he knows that, and deep down he knows that when he's not president, he's going to be in a giant heap of legal trouble, which might be one of the reasons why he still wants to be president. Oh, what a fucked up situation we're in.